All right, hi, and welcome back to the regional stage, everybody. I'm your host, Omar, commonly known as OT. And up next, we've got a very interesting panel for you all. So this panel is presented by MENA, which is on the Generation Z, exploring the generation's blurred line between virtual and real existence. And what will happen is after the panel, obviously, it will be open for Q&A for all of you guys to contribute. So allow me to introduce our moderator, Melissa Moubarak, who is the Business and Science Director at MENA. And you know what? I'm going to let you introduce your panelists. I'm not going to take your light.
All right, thank you very much. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our panel. I'd like to begin with a family picture. This is my family. By no means all of it, of course. Only those who managed to make it to a family lunch last Sunday in Beirut. That's me, by the way. I can only tell you how long it took to take that one picture and how loud we were trying to take it. But the point is, being an Arab and a marketer, this is an actual advantage, because large families, love them or hate them, it actually means that you have unprecedented and unparalleled insight into every type of target audience that you might be interested in. And interestingly, sometimes, and up until today, most marketers have been lumping everyone under the age of 35 into one loosely called millennial target audience. But as you can see from the picture of me and my other third-generation cousins, we're not the same thing. In fact, there's a big difference between Gen Y and Gen Z. And let's put it this way. If you came of age with social media, then you're Gen Y. Because Gen Z is the first generation that did not have to go through the torture of listening to the dial-up screech. That being said, the teenage experience today is fundamentally different than previous generations. They still have to fight acne, they still have to fight their parents, they still have to go through their first breakups. But the tools that are accessible to them to grow up are always on, and they have changed their outlook on life, their behavior, and the way they make decisions. So today as marketers, we had better acknowledge them, because there's nothing that a teenager hates more than being ignored or talked to by a dinosaur that just doesn't get it. And this is why we've got our panelists today, in order to shed some insight on this elusive generation. At MENA, we also tried to take a deeper look into who they are. And so we conducted an interesting research that took into account two sets of data. It's big data and small data. Big data in the form of the hordes of information that teenagers leave behind digitally through their crumbs and cookie crumbs. Also conducted a quantitative survey across 8 MENA markets. We then looked into small data, which included panels, focus groups, and ethnographic research. And finally, there was native observation, which unfortunately meant that I had to follow my 18-year-old cousin's Snapchat account. So who are they? Many a brand, particularly some of the Western edgy ones, have faltered when it came to discussing and communicating with Gen Z in the MENA region. That's because some of them came in with a very Western, subversive type of rebellious attitude, and others, on the other end of the spectrum, tried to be culturally attuned, and as a result ended towing a very culturally conservative line. But the counterintuitive fact is, today's MENA teenagers are neither here or there. They're actually a very fine balance, a subtle mix between subversion and cultural consciousness. And while they're not like Western teen, they're not as rebellious. This rebellion appears in flashes that you can see online, virtually, but that also extend into the real world. A dash of blue hair under abaya, a purple lipstick here, a hidden tattoo there, a skater in abaya. So all of these are expressions of flashes of rebellion. And this is how brands that are able to actually toe that line and communicate in that balance are able to win with this target audience. And in fact, this was how we managed to help our client Durex broach the conversation of sex with teens in Saudi Arabia. Another point that we'd like to make is how these teens communicate. It's quite visual, it's quite TLDR, and it's quite emoji-based. So a lot of brands have thought that the way to communicate and reach out to this target audience is actually to dumb things down for them. Make it shorter, make it snappier. That's the only way that they'll be able to get it. But in fact, they're very strong at visually crafting their personal story. And growing up under the spotlight of social media have really attuned them to the importance of their personal brand. And talking about brands, these teens are a lot more cynical, but they're also a lot more savvy. What we've been seeing is the rise of a dichotomy in the way that they look at brands. Some of them are quite brand fanatic, so they're very, very keen on expressing their loyalty to brands, and they feel that gadgets and products help them seek that status, while others, and an increasingly growing number of them, are brand agnostic or brand deniers even. And these teens, the way for status to them is through experiences. With that, I'd like to invite our panelists up onto the stage. First, I'd like to introduce Raha Moharrak, who, as many of you know, is the youngest Arab female to have summited Mt.Everest.
Hello.
And since that achievement,
thanks for having me. Can
since
everyone
that
hear me?
achievement, she's actually been inspiring young people all over the MENA region through her motivational talks. And next, I'd like to invite Sherif Ghanem, who is Media and Connections Manager at the Coca-Cola company. Sherif's very difficult job is to keep a brand, a legacy brand, as old as Coca-Cola, fresh to the youth of today across MENA. And finally, I'd like to introduce Taim. Taim Falasi, who started her online radio channel talking about the day-to-day of Arab youth, has really gained a meteoric fame amongst this target audience. So thank you all for joining us. And I guess let's get straight into it. Can you share some insights on what is it that makes Gen Z tick? I'd like to leave this open for whoever wants to dive in first.
Good.
I will start with something that my brother told me like 2 weeks ago. And he told me, and he knows it's wrong. That's why he asked. And he said, can I watch Game of Thrones? And I said, no, you cannot watch Game of Thrones. It's for old people. And he said, okay, then I'll watch it. Okay, now he asked actually to watch it on Showtime. I said, no, you cannot watch it on Showtime. And then he told me, then I'll watch it on the internet. I said, that's even worse. So the generation now is not like before. They know that this is wrong and this is right. Before we had things at my age, like I was his age, but at that generation, I don't know if I'm why, because I heard the connection for too long. It was different. Now they have different goals, they have different fears. And he was telling me, I was asking my brother, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he said, I want to be a YouTuber. So I'm a YouTuber, but I didn't like what he said. Because to be something is to be a doctor, to be an artist, to be whatever. But to be a YouTuber is not something that I'll be really proud of. That my brother is thinking that way. He could be whatever he wants. There is no restrictions. But to see those conversations, how it appears to them, because YouTube is fame, YouTube is having more attention and stuff like that. So their thinking is so much different. And I think it's not that this generation has to fear about something. It's our generation and the parents, how we should be like really feared about how powerful their minds are right now.
Thank you. Raha, I'd like to direct my next question to you. A lot of people, there's a growing argument that Generation Z is actually Generation Lazy because they're so reliant on their mobile devices, they're sedentary. I mean, you're a spokesperson, you're practically a poster child for being active and for an active lifestyle. Why do you think that is? What's your point of view on that?
I think it's very difficult to call a generation in general lazy or not lazy, because you have a bit of both in everything, right? But I think with this particular generation, they've become very spoiled with information, very spoiled with what they can get, and they've become very they don't have the patience to work for something. Everything needs to be quickly, everything needs to be now, and it just, they've become so spoiled that way that I think even in the media and the way you try to sell a brand to them, they've become really dumb, and they've become really one layered. And it's just, I think the more this generation gets spoiled, the more we end up with a huge gap between ours and theirs, when before there wasn't a big gap. So I just think,
So Sherif,
I think he has such a difficult job. I mean, trying
from
to
a
keep
brand's
it.
point of view,
from a
Sherif.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Sherif. I didn't mean to, background in design, in advertising. But I really think brands need to up their game a little bit, because they've become very lazy, and everything is spoon-fed because everything is fast. And if you don't get it directly, that's what makes them lazy. It's not necessarily that they are innately lazy. I think that because the media and social, the way you scroll nowadays, it's just, it's very fast. And back to the point that you were talking about, I remember when I wanted to find I can't remember, it was like a bird in the Amazon back when I was in school. I remember going to our encyclopedia wall and trying to find the letter of the animal, and that teaches you patience. That teaches you, now you just type in bird and you get whatever. So
Google fills it in for you.
Yeah,
you don't even have to type
they're
in the
not
whole
lazy.
thing.
I think the technology and how it's been given to them has made them a little bit lazy that way.
So Sherif, how have brands
Sherif.
countered that speed and things? Are you dumbing down communication with teens?
I wouldn't say we're dumbing down the communication. To Ra's point, they've had internet since a young age. This is literally the generation with the one click away of getting any piece of information they want. It's just that the attention span, to your point, is I mean, I've read sources of 6 seconds, 8 seconds. So it's not about dumbing down the information or the communication we want to give it. It's how can we make the most of that attention that we have, and it's it's whether you get tactics of utilizing the 5 seconds of YouTube or the the informals of Twitter. But it's also how can you make it relevant to what's going on around them, because if you have that click of what is relevant to them, then you will definitely cut through. And I wouldn't say they're dumb, yes, and not even lazy per se. Rather, it's different things that ticks with them right now. And it's actually, we've realized that they are really smart. We are taking more and more risks with the communication we get, because it's unbelievable how much they comprehend. It's unbelievable that if when we test with real-time communication for anything that is going on, they'll immediately grasp these things, which is quite impressive. So.
Yeah. On attention spans, Taim, I'd like to direct my next question to you. Some of your vlogs go into the 20, 30-minute mark, which is much longer than the benchmark that we recommend to brands. What is the secret to capturing your audience's attention for that long?
It was very risky for me. I actually started that with a vlog, which was 1 hour and 30 minutes. And I started this vlog and I was like, really, should I divide it? Should I put parts? Or what should I do with it? Then I said, okay, I'll just release it as a movie. And then I was really afraid that people won't be able to stay for the first 10 minutes. And actually what shocked me is the opposite. Maybe I was lucky. Maybe the content was really worth it, but it is still too much. So I remember that I went to the back end of the YouTube and saw how long did people actually stayed on that video, and I saw until maybe 40 minutes, 50 minutes. So it was like, okay, then I'm able to do that. Then the rest of the vlogs were around 20 and 30. And for brands, actually, what I did is, I don't know if it's a strategy or something that I had in my mind, but I still go with it, and I'm really, brands love that as well. So what I do is, if a brand wants to be featured in a certain video on YouTube, they know my vlogs are long, like 15, 20, and I reject doing direct branding for 2-3 minutes on my YouTube. It's not my style. But I remember a brand came to me and said, we want to push this campaign through your YouTube video. And I said, okay, but will you be able, no, I told them I have a topic that I want to share with people, and I will integrate the brand in some way inside the topic. And they said, what is the topic? I said, my weight. And then they said, but this has nothing to do with our campaign. I said, believe it or not, you will see the video, and I'm sure you will see how I'll make them related. And I remember talking about my weight, and for people actually to wait for that, I said, I won't tell you my weight until the end of the video, but let me share with you something A, B, to Z. Then they were like, they were bearing with me and listening to the whole branding thing and waiting for me to share actually my weight.
Bait and hook.
Yeah, so I've always done that. I start with something really interesting, push the really important part to the end, and put the brands in between.
You bring up a really interesting subject, and I think this is a controversial one for a lot of people in our audience, and it's the topic of influencers. A lot of people are saying that, particularly for Gen Z, influencers have become a little bit outdated, maybe their influence is waning, and other people are saying, nope, you definitely need to go down the influencer route. It's the only way that these people will let you in. So I'd like to hear from actually all of you. Perhaps, Sherif, you can start us off with the brand perspective.
I think for, a hotly contended issue, is rightly said, it's a matter of how you want to use this. If you're going to, we've seen from in our own brand trackers, it has an impression. In some cases, as close to a celebrity presence as others. You see how other brands are using it, how widely recognized some of the faces are. I mean, I don't want to put towards any attention, but we, standing with Taim outside, we've had like close to 12 people approach her saying hi. So it leaves, there's reach, there's impressions and such. It's just that how you use it to keep that impression viable for you. If you're going to end up trying to tactical campaigns from here and there, people are going to buy into it, understand that, this is just done for the money. But if you strategize over a certain period of time and really implement this into your campaigns, make it work for you, we've seen really, really great results. But it's an industry as well that is still young, because if brands don't eventually see impression on volume, where just like we've dropped other mediums before, it will be something that we try to get out of.
Both of you ladies have actually worked with brands and are considered socially important people for a younger target audience. Raha, how has your experience been in terms of finding that right way of working with brands?
Just to build on this point, I think using influencers is an evolution of advertising. I don't think they're different. I think it's just a new way of advertising. But I think the key, and a lot of brands lose this key, is the synergy and the marriage. And this brand needs to be relevant for this influencer. Not just because of an influencer has something, a few million, doesn't mean that this brand would necessarily coexist. There needs to be synergy. I've seen so many influencers that have nothing to do with the brand, and they're using their pages as advertising space. And then the consumer will know that this is advertising space, and it loses that luster of it being a genuine product, right? Because if the influencer uses you as a product, and then your competitor, then you realize, the consumer, who is very smart, realizes this person is just being paid, is not genuine, right? In my case, I was very fortunate. I started my climbing career. Well, it wasn't a career at the time. My climbing, I call it rebellion. My father calls it my moment of insanity. We always have a disagreement. But at the pinnacle of my climbing career, social media was booming. And it really, really helped to put me on the map in terms of not just an athlete, but as an ambassador for female in sports, before any brands even took notice. So I had a platform to show people. It was targeted for women in general, and specific for Arab women, that an Arab woman can do sports in this level before even having the platform. And I didn't have the budget to pay a PR agency or to go to an advertising agency and say, this is who I am, I need to shop myself. I had to build myself from scratch. So it took out the middle person. It gave me an opportunity to build a fan base enough to be recognized as a influencer. I think you also had kind of a similar thing where you took the step on your own, whereas 20 years ago, 15 years ago, you had to go to an advertising agency or a PR and say, this is who I am, can you help promote me? So it really, really helps the individual who has the right type of passion and drive to be able to be showcased internationally without having someone to help pick you up. And then after that, once you initially take that step and you get recognized, you start getting followers. It's like a snowball. Yeah. More followers bring in more followers, and then you get recognized as an influencer. I think the first time someone called me an influencer, I got a little bit offended. I was like, what? I'm not an influencer. I'm a mountain climber. And then I realized that the term means someone who has influence on other people, not the negative term. So in my case, I'm very, very grateful for the play of social media in my life.
You bring up some really interesting topics about being an Arab female and pioneering the route for Arab women in sport. I'll get back to that. But I just wanted to segue here with Taim a little bit deeper in terms of the influencers and their relationship with Gen Z specifically. Through your segment, #AskTaim, go check it out and ask your questions. A lot of young people ask you about everything. What is it that they ask you about? I mean, how do you see the difference between some of the older audience members and some of the younger audience members?
Yeah. You can, like, the most important topic that they talk about, because their topics are like really normal topics, just what's your favorite colors, what's your favorite color, what's your favorite car, but there are people who are asking more about, like, when are you getting married? So there are like people who ask really personal questions and people who are really just generic with their questions. Now, for me to know how old is this person is sometimes I can't tell by the way they ask the question. It's not about the question, because anyone can ask what's your favorite color. But the thing is, it's an emoji word. It's in how people interact. So the younger generation, maybe some will use a video and ask their question. Maybe some will use a picture to ask a question. So mostly, to be really honest, it is around that generation, which is 13 to 21, 22.
So they're a lot more visual in the way that they communicate with you.
Yeah, exactly. And for them, actually, and to be really honest, to know that this person is a really grown-up person, he doesn't just bring a question to you. He just have like a topic or something before that, then brings out the question. And then here, you know, this person is like maybe 23, 24 and more. But there are people who just, please answer my question. Please follow me after answering my question. You know, those generations are thirsty for something. Please follow me. Please mention my name. So you know that this is the Z generation.
Definitely a lot more fast-paced. So, Sherif, I'd like to get back to you and the brand way to deal with all of this. How has your communication changed over the past few generations?
I think, you know, Coca-Cola has been around for like 130 years now. I think one thing why we, you know, to your point on remaining relevant, one thing is we've stayed true to the core of the brand, you know. Coca-Cola makes the moment more special. You know, sharing a Coca-Cola with a friend makes the moment more special. It's uplifting, happiness and such. I think the core of the brand hasn't changed over generations. It's how we remained relevant is through being contextually relevant, if I may say. I mean, if for some of you guys here, the Super Bowl ad, for example, that aired during the Super Bowl that initially came out in 2014, America is Beautiful. I mean, this is something that is relating to something that's happening right now on the ground, which is why people still relate to Coke 130 years later. Closer to here in 2015, we had the Ramadan no labels. We started by removing our labels because we can see the prejudice that is being faced within the communities, within our region. So it's that contextual relevance. But it's also how you do the media and the connections behind it, because we, you know, in the past, in the 70s, we used to create a campaign out of a 30-second TVC. That was the campaign. Today, we look at TVCs on mobile first and make sure that that long form of digital can be viewed on mobile properly, and then we may relaunch it again on TV in that aspect. So it's how you make use of, you know, what Generation Z are using and you know, target and connect on that as a platform.
Okay, the last topic we'd like to discuss is a little bit more around the culture. Raha, you mentioned that you were blazing a trail for Arab women, and you mentioned in a previous interview that you faced a hard no. In the preface, I talked about this very subtle balance of Arab teens facing a lot of societal pressure to conform, but at the same time wanting to rebel. Can you have your cake and eat it too? Do you have to give one up for the other? What was your experience like?
You can have the cake and eat it too, but not in the same time. You can't have the whole cake in the same time. I remember the first time I decided to climb mountains. I was terrified at the actual idea that I wanted to climb mountains. Even before telling anyone about it, I asked myself, is this really what I wanted? And I said, yes, this is what you want. I was terrified. Why would I want to climb mountains? Where did this come from? And how am I going to convince my father? And all these things came up, and a lot of people reach the point of wanting a dream, but are too afraid to be honest about it, are too afraid to confront their family, and that's the key turning point. So I was probably more crazy than brave than when I decided to tell my father I wanted to climb mountains. But that was one of the most important things, is to be honest to yourself about who you want to be. And I genuinely did not want to go from wedding to wedding waiting for Prince Charming to come and sweep me off my feet. I mean, it would be amazing if Prince Charming shows up when I'm climbing, or when I'm hiking, or when I'm skiing or scuba diving.
He needs to be in hiking boots.
No, I'm not, no prejudice. He can be anything. But the point is, I didn't want to stop my life to fit into what the typical lifestyle is. I wanted to continue my life, and if he showed up, he showed up. And mountain climbing just happened to be what I wanted. So in the beginning, it was very difficult to even say the words to my family. I don't want to settle down right now at this moment. I want to climb mountains. It was very hard. And that's, if you ask me what advice I give to the next generation, any generation, is first, be honest to yourself with what you want. And if you are born in the Arab world, sit down with your family and tell them, this is my dream. Because that's the first step into getting there. And in my case, the no I got from my father was a push that really, really made me want to do this. I was, let's say, 80% sure I wanted to climb mountains. But when my father told me I couldn't climb mountains, I was 120% sure I wanted to climb mountains.
Surefire way to get a teenager to do something.
So
tell them no.
but have that conversation. Have that open space for the new parents. Have the open space for the younger generation. Give them the chance. Give your parents a chance to talk to you. Don't just hide. Don't just hide what you have to say.
Taim, a lot of people are asking you when you're going to get married, and I think your brother also had a few, a few issues with you opening your restaurant. How has your experience been?
Not really, but my experience has been from I got the first no when I was 8 years old. And I remember going to my father, and I had my mother's back on that, and because she loves media, and she was pushing me like, if you want to be like a presenter or something, you just have my back. And then I remember that day she came to me and gave me a newspaper, and she said, there is an advertisement that they want kids presenters in a certain channel. Then I went to my father, and she said, don't worry, you have my back. And she was behind me, and I went to my father, and I gave him the newspaper, and he said, what's that? I said, like, I want to be a presenter. There is an advertisement. And I remember that moment, like he threw the newspaper away, and I was looking for my mother, and she wasn't there. You thought you'll have my back. I thought you'll have, yeah. But the thing is, after 10 years, when I was 18, I went to my father, and I told him I'm going to study visual communication. Visual communications, which involves filmmaking, writing, photography, being in front of the camera, behind the camera. He said, yeah, what's wrong with that? I said, are you sure? Like, nothing had happened. He just changed his mind because of 10 years later, so many things changed. So that was the no of that. But yeah, I had some from my brothers at first when started vlogging, because sharing your daily life as a Emirati female is really new to this community. Like, she's sharing where she sits, what's her father like, what's her mother like, how do they eat, and that was really, really risky, and people
yeah. I mean, obviously there's been overwhelming positive feedback from your fans, but what about some of the negative feedback? Have you seen Arab teens today, You know, are they more open to this type of sharing, or do you feel that they're going back to something a little bit more closed?
No, believe me. Actually, I was shocked. Now I feel like I'm old. Because the thing is, the last app that I'm using, which is like really cool, is Snapchat. But then I see other, like my 16, 18, 19 years old cousins, they're using even a worse app, which has no privacy at all, that they're using. Like, even if I'm sitting with them, a family, they're just bringing their phones next to me, and it's house party. So this house party app is even more. It's like, it kills the privacy. There are like 8 people in the room, and you have to lock the room so now nobody else can. It is really like, where is that going? I thought like, the last thing I thought is Snapchat is the most like.
No, now I feel really old
Yeah.
because I have no idea what house party is.
Exactly, I just knew that a week ago. So, so imagine what's next? What's after house party, which has no privacy at all? So there are so many things that is like really.
Let's ask the marketers, what's next?
I mean, the thing is, you monitor and you try to be as insightful and you listen as much. But the reality is, we still don't know enough to crack the code, regardless of how it goes. And if anyone says, they're on point and they understand, then it's potentially not true. To your point on house party, I mean, I've personally heard of house party, but I'm sure there are like 10 other apps that they're using, and we have absolutely no ideas what they are.
So what can we tell brands or audience here today? What is it that they need to think about when they are looking to communicate in a relevant way with Gen Z?
I mean, we haven't cracked it for ourselves yet to come and preach, and I don't think it will be for anyone to, every brand, every brand has its own consumers, its own core competencies and core offering and unique selling points. And we're still in the process of really trying to comprehend the whole bit. I mean, there are campaigns that we have done that have scored and done really well, others not so much. So it's actually, I'm here today at least, to see what others have also been doing to try and grasp as much as possible for us.
Okay, well, I think we'd like to open up the floor for questions. Shall we take a couple of questions to begin with, and who's going to be the first one to dive in?
What do you think of hashtags for Generation Z? We had a presentation at Taim this year. We had 15 years old explaining to us that hashtags were for old people like us, right? So what's your take on hashtags for Generation Z?
Is this question directed to any one of the panelists, or
I'm still
whoever
working
would like?
on party app. What's it called? House
House
party.
party.
So I think I'm so outdated on this.
Is he talking about hashtags?
Hashtags.
The archangel mentioned the house party.
No, so I think I'm out for this
I think,
question.
there are benefits of hashtags. It works with multi-screening. It works when you want to consolidate a campaign, reach. We've seen pickups of using of hashtags. So I wouldn't say they don't use it. And I think with the prominence of Instagram, which really, the likes come on the back of hashtags, it's still too early for it.
To us, for her and her friends, if using it was not very cool. So I just wanted to know if in the region.
I mean, Taim, do you use? I mean,
Actually, it depends. What you see in the generation, what's before Y? There is a generation before Y.
X, Y, and
X, Y, yeah, X. When you see, how to tell that this post has been posted by Generation X? Yeah, X. So
Right.
you see a picture of nature, like maybe a sea or whatever it is. Then you see a million hashtag: nature, beach, yellow, red, this country. You see million of hashtags. So this
These are
is
likes.
this is Generation X. Generation Y would go more advanced. Generation Z actually are so picky with their hashtags, and they only use hashtags which, if they use that hashtag, it would make them actually be cool that they're using that hashtag. So for me, I actually use hashtags only on branding or advertising, because companies want to track the posts, or maybe there's a competition or anything. But I personally, I don't use a hashtag, only if I want to make fun of something. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, also thinking about it, just to add a point here, being in the Arab world, the Arabic hashtag has recently risen to prominence. And so I'd say it's not completely faded away just because of the possibility of Arab youth to be able to use hashtags in their own language, which also creates an entire new space to play around with. So that's something that, you know, needs to be monitored a little bit more.
I'd like to also say, you know, on the fading away point, I mean, it depends. You know, Snapchat has come out of nowhere over the last few years, and hashtags are not as prominent there as they are on, you know, Instagram or Twitter. So it's really depends on multiple aspects of it.
We got another question over here.
Should I get that one?
So it's basically about what content works best and what content doesn't work very well for you.
I'll say for me personally, but in general, as also, I'm also a consumer. The genuinity, being genuine, is always more. It's amazing how people can sniff out something that's fake. So being genuine in the way you tag, in what you say, in how you consume the product, how you convey the product is. I always get so many more positive engagement, genuine engagement from something that was an actual product I've used. And I'm actually very picky with what I use and what I put on. So I'm not the best example, but as a consumer myself, when I see a post, I phase out anything that has a hashtag, a million hashtags, and then, like I said earlier, a person that is not relevant to the brand, I will not use that brand anymore. And I have cut out brands that I used to love because they endorse someone that I think is completely irrelevant.
Shall we name names?
No. I'm smart enough and, you know, at least savvy enough to know. I won't say that, but to be genuine. And I know it's so silly and cliche to say it, but this genuinity is being lost because so many influencers have eyes, have eyeballs, and have swipes, but don't necessarily have the right platform. So always try to be genuine, and the world is vast. You will find an influencer that fits you. So don't knock on the same 4 doors every time. Because I'm really tired of seeing the same faces endorse the same product. So be genuine, take the time to find the influencers, find someone new, and I think that's what's missing in the market, is to actually find new blood.
Taim, so to direct the question to you, you've got a variety of content on your vlogs. Some of them are more food-based, some of them are travel-based, some of them are long, some of them are short, some of them are questions, some of them are just you talking about certain topics. What have you seen works best for this target audience in particular? Is it something that's more interactive? Is it something that's more inspirational? What type of content do they prefer?
Actually, the thing with brands, and I've been rejecting a lot of collaborations because there is a certain brand who wants to advertise for a certain campaign or a certain product, and they want us to put the poster of that. So imagine there is a brand A and they have this product, and they want us to put the picture of the product that they've sent with a nicely photographed, and like it is like something that you see in the road. And then always our feedback on that is, if you want something that an influencer should advertise, there should be an influencer input on that. Like maybe trying the perfume, for example, then having the influencer in the picture. Because even me, if I scroll down the feed of Instagram and I see like posters, like maybe I see, for example, a Coke. Okay, I will like a Coke. I will like that picture no matter what, because it's the love of my life. But other people, if they...
Thank you, Taim.
There you go, free influencer publicity.
By the way, can I give you an example of how is the love of my life? In my restaurant, it was the first day of the opening of my restaurant. I know we're sitting and doing the bills and stuff. And there was a Coke money, and the receipts. And we were discussing all, and out of the sudden, it was 12:30. It started raining really heavily, and everyone started running away from this place to hide in a place. And I ran away, left the money, left the receipts, took my Coke, and ran away. So it is. So this is. So yeah, this is exactly what I'm saying. I would like a picture of a Coke, but it's not a smart move for a Coke to put just a poster in any influencer page. They have to interact it in some way, in a video, and maybe a challenge, and whatever there is. The poster thing is the zero interaction.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
No comments.
Genuine.
No likes. You have to have the influencer interacted in some way with the product.
I mean, they're clearly doing something correct if they've made it that much into it. You might as well depend on them to create it. So.
I think
We've got a question in the back, the lady in white.
When he asked this question, I've been thinking all day, and like I slept on that. Like, how would I tell him no? And I'm a YouTuber. I'm what he's saying, because he sees that in front of him, and like maybe it's an inspiration for him or anything. But when I was thinking about that, it wasn't in my mind at that time to be a YouTuber. I just wanted to be something that where's my passion. But I'm 100% sure teenagers are really. They have powerful minds. They like the whole power is with them, but they have things going back and forth in their head. They're not sure. It's whatever is trending right now. Like if YouTube wasn't trending right now, and like after 5 years when he graduated something else, he wants to be that thing. So it is not really clear for them. And I remember telling my brother, like, no, be a doctor, be an astronomer, be whatever you want. What's your passion? Maybe an athlete, maybe a football player. And he said, no, I want to be that, but it feels nice to tell people that I want to be a YouTuber because I want to be like you. So it's all about the fame. It's all about what his friends are telling him in the class, how he's seeing. Like, even sometimes he's jealous from me. Like, if someone is taking pictures with me, he's like, when he comes back, I won't go with Taim again. People takes pictures with her, and I'm only standing there looking at them. So I think it just came from what he's seeing around. It's not actually his passion. That's the thing.
Okay, well, I'm afraid we don't have any more time for questions, but our panelists will hang around for a few more minutes if you'd like to come and talk to them. I would like to wrap up, first of all, by thanking our panelists for their time and for their insight. I guess, in conclusion, if you were to take just 3 main things from this discussion, first, make sure that you're relevant. Find out what it is that they are passionate about and speak their language. Don't talk to them, engage in conversation with them. Realize that they're going through a crisis, that they're opposed to, that they've got different struggles. 2, I guess also make sure that you give them the stage, because they're very visual in their communication and they just want to be famous. That's their goal. And 3, just be careful how you use influencers, because unless you're using them in the right way, then chances are you're going to lose your audience even more. But if you use them in the correct way, then you've got teenagers aspiring to be YouTubers just because they've got a role model there. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for joining and for participating. The research by is going to be published soon enough, so please do get in touch with our PR director, Komal Bajaj, if you'd like to get some more information on that. And hopefully, we'll be able to shed a little bit more insight on this elusive Gen Z.
Oh! Ooh!
And now it's cold again. All right, well, thank you very much, everybody.